as a bipartisan Senate bill was introduced. It's a bill to ban bump stocks, despite President Trump's promise to eliminate them in an executive order. So everyone's sort of getting in on the act, including corporate America, Kroger joining Walmart and Dick's Sporting Goods and raising their gun purchasing age to 21 in an effort to keep weapons out of the hands of young people. But are these really everlasting solutions to our serious problem, or just maybe public relations ploys? Let's ask our panel. Ned Ryun, American Majority CEO and contributor to The Hill. Kristin Tate, NRA member and contributor to The Hill as well. Deneen Borelli with me in studio, Fox News contributor, CRTV.com host. Kristin, let me start with you. You're an NRA member. The association has come under serious assault these days. What do you make of it all?
Look, I mean, banning bump stocks really isn't a big deal to most of the gun owners I know. The problem is that gun control advocates are never satisfied, and they will not stop with bump stocks. Today they want to ban bump stocks. Tomorrow they're going to want to ban extended ammo clips. The day after that, they're going to want to ban all semi-automatic rifles. It's a slippery slope, and they will not stop. So we just need to keep that in mind when we talk about this issue. And I think that this is probably the beginning of more legislation from the left.
Ned, there's no doubt that progressives have wanted to really tamp down or curb, most of the rights that are given from the Second Amendment. They've made that clear for a very long period of time. So you understand the anxieties of anyone who believes in the Second Amendment, not even an NRA member, but just folks who don't think it should be tampered with. But it looks like that door is going to be open to a degree.
Well, Charles, the Democrats just put a bill on the House of the floor, want to bring a bill to the House of the floor, which would basically essentially ban every semi-automatic rifle and handgun in the United States. And so my challenge to them is, if you really feel that strongly about it, every Democrat should run on that in the midterms in 2018 and say, yeah, we're going to be very honest about who we are. We want to confiscate every semi-automatic rifle in this country. The thing that's troubling to me, Charles, is some of these solutions that are being proposed, I don't think they're just more dangerous virtue signaling. This whole idea of raising the age from 18 to 21, it's absurd to me. So we're going to say that because the government utterly and miserably failed us, we are going to take away the legal and constitutional rights of millions of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. And let's not forget, in Broward County, they were called 45 times on this young man. The FBI was warned twice. And so in response to that, we're going to say we're going to create a two-tiered system for 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Hey, you can vote, but you can't have a rifle. Hey, you can serve in the military, but you can't have a rifle. You can get married, but you can't have a rifle. This is absurd, and I don't see the real solutions that I want to see in regards to keeping our schools safe.
Yeah, certainly, Deneen, when Kroger made the announcement, a lot of people snickered. They didn't even, they don't even necessarily associate Kroger with a place you go and buy ammunition. Be that as it may, corporate America taking a more socially responsible role, that worries some people. But overall, where do you see this going? Are there any real honest solutions being put forth in your mind?
Well, especially with this tragedy that happened, Charles, what about the local and federal law enforcement holding them accountable? Who are the names? Who are the people who gave the order for the police officers, the deputies, to not go into the school? What about the FBI? There were numerous red flags and warnings with this Nicholas Cruz over the years, and the feds didn't do anything as well. So there is a massive failure from the local and federal law enforcement. Where's the outrage over that?
You know, Kristin, I went to school in North Dakota, and I remember I went to Minot State College when I was up there, and when I was in the Air Force, and I took a course there with some of the local folks, and there's this guy who wrote a paper in creative writing about the joys of going hunting for the first time. His dad bought him a hunting rifle when he was like 13, 14 years old, and his dad got sick. So he filled his tags, and he was able to fill his dad's tags. That part of Americana is probably going to go away.
You know, this is why we should really make the age limit a state's issue. If a state like New York or Massachusetts wants to raise the age limit to buy semi-automatic guns, they can do that. In fact, the Illinois House this week passed a measure that would raise their age limit. But then there are other parts of the country where there's a strong outdoors and hunting culture, and they may not want to do that. A state like Wyoming is very different than a state like Massachusetts, and the rules in these states should reflect the will of the people who live there.
I got to tell you, Ned, I hear what you're saying with respect to politicians and what the Dems may or may not run on, but I just, because President Trump has taken a sort of centrist position on this, I'm just not sure that I think we're going to open up this door, and I just don't know where it's going to lead.
Well, that's my concern, but I would remind people, I'm not a member of the NRA, but I respect the work that they do. This isn't about the NRA and its 5 million members. This is about 100 million gun owners in America. And so we have to take a look at this. Again, Charles, I wrote about this at The Hill just the other day. This is a human right. The Second Amendment is a human right, from which I think all our other rights come from. Freedom of speech and assembly, all these great rights. The thing that I would say about what's being discussed right now, where I think we can find bipartisan agreement on, is going and fixing the National Instant Criminal Background System, background check.
Right.
Because there are a lot of failures that have taken place. You can get bipartisan support on this. But, Charles, guess what's been happening on this front? Government has been failing. Let's get the government agencies to do what they're supposed to do and upload when somebody's been dishonorably discharged, when there's a felony, when there's domestic abuse. Upload that into the database so people can't buy guns.
There's a lot of things like that we should be doing. The tragedy in Florida was, to me, like a black swan event. Everything that could have gone wrong in succession went wrong. Every red flag was ignored. It's a shame. And there should be a really comprehensive way of fixing this. Thank you all very much. Just so the audience knows, the parent of Smith & Wesson is down 11% right now, and Sturm Ruger is down 6%.